First story. I just want some accountability, not for the cheating but everything in between. I'm tired of the fact that every day leading up to D-Day, and a lot of the things my WW said was just any other to him but deeply damaging to me. I know some people say their relationship with their spouse prior to discovering the cheating was perfect, so it hit them as a surprise. But I discovered her affair because she had gone from being my best friend to treating me like dog doo-doo. And I was like, something is up. Finding out about her cheating opened my eyes to why during that time I could have ran naked down the streets and she wouldn't turn her head to look at me. Example. One night after I approached her with sexy lingerie in the living room, she straddled my lap, and we started kissing up and down, and take her to come to our bedroom. Then get pushed off, told you do nothing that gets me going, so why would I want to? Lingerie and kissing do nothing for me, and she proceeded to stand up for hours sexting her AP while I cried feeling rejected. I'm still like, what the fuck did she do? That was experience. She didn't have to try at all, just exist. Fast forward, it's been 3 years since the affair then, and she treats me so much better. I feel seen again. I feel fully like she has tried to make amends for the act of cheating. But that isn't even what I want recognition for. I want a sincere apology for the year she treated me like doo-doo because of the affair. But he acts like she remembers none of it. Like I tried on a romantic trip today that I had planned away because I originally bought another spot trip while she was having an affair. And I didn't know, and during that time I modeled it for her, expecting a damn baby. I so relax. I want more and I don't like it, and then disinterest. I took a dick pic today and sent it to her, and I want to sexting her escalated her mood. She literally called me creepy and said don't send it to me again. The pushing me out of my lap, saying I do nothing for her. She doesn't remember it. Did anyone else experience anything like this? Like, I don't want to live in the past. I want to move forward. But I feel like part of him taking accountability for the cheating, she should also take accountability for treating me badly while she was. But to her, I guess she was a perfect fiancé aside from the cheating. Like, I just want a sincere apology. I said a lot of cruel things to you then. And it wasn't because of you, it was because I was being an ass. Like, I just want some accountability. Accountability is extremely important, and I think it's also important for WW to get out of denial, stop minimizing, and see themselves and their actions for what they were. No matter the situation, even if it was going both ways, even if they felt justified in their actions at the time. Post D-Day, the blinders have to come off and the justifications have to stop. WW has to own their shit, and all of it, completely. They have to be able to see all their actions through the eyes of BP and be willing to sit with BP in those feelings and help BP heal. A fair amount of the work my WW and I have had to do this past year in R relates to unresolved stuff from over a decade ago, when we actually ended up separating for a few months. Even though it was so long ago and we've had a loving and functional relationship since then, I never really got over how hurtful she was to me during that time. And she never seemed willing to acknowledge any of what she did that wrecked me back then. I am not claiming to have been perfectly sweet and selfless at that time either, but the difference is that I owned my shit and made amends immediately after. She wanted to view herself as blameless, which he was not. That time period, and the unresolved emotions from it, in a lot of ways, ended up setting the stage for her destructive cheating behaviors a decade later, and the ways she justified them to herself for as long as she did. My point is, it's all part of the same thing, and it all needs to be addressed and resolved, or these denials, justifications, and blind spots will simply continue to manifest in other ways. We all have to be willing to shine a light on our ugliest habits and tendencies, so they don't continue to direct our behavior unconsciously. Backstory: during the 6-week portion of WW's affair when it was physical, AP lives across the country but his parents live here and he was out visiting. My WW treated me terribly. She would pick fights so she could storm out of the house to go talk to a friend. She would work late on our couch every night texting him instead of coming to bed with me. I remember one night I wrote her a dirty poem in an effort to flirt with her, and she just responded LOL and then ignored it. I know now it's because she was texting him instead. I remember the feeling of rejection that night, of the pain and confusion as to why she had become so distant, of why our intimacy went from a regular 3-4 week to twice in those 6 weeks, and both times I could tell she was just doing so out of duty and not desire. I remember at one point after D-Day 2, I wrote down in my journal all the ways she had hurt me with her affair. All the lies, deceit, disrespect, neglect and gaslighting. It was a lot. After D-Day 3, my WW started to recognize these on her own, and her apologies shifted to specific acts or situations instead of just blanket apologies. I am so sorry I left you the same night you got back from your work trip to go see him. You were so excited to be back home and to see us, and I threw you away like trash that night. You didn't deserve that, and I hate that I treated you that way. I hate that I tried to see him the day before our 10-year anniversary. You were trying so hard to reconnect and rebuild our marriage, and I just didn't care. It makes me sick looking back to see how much effort you were putting in for us and our family, and I only cared about myself. The change in her apologies was the biggest indicator to me that she had reframed how she thought about both her affair and her treatment of me during it. How she recognized that she had prioritized the feelings and wants of so many others, herself, her AP, her mother, over mine and our children. She had realized how selfish her behavior was. She saw how selfless mine was in comparison, and it made her sick and disgusted with herself to see the difference. I showed her how a spouse should treat their partner and family, and she saw her actions and behavior in comparison. And it made her realize that she was entirely at fault for everything we were going through. Out of all the aspects of the affair to recover from, her treatment of me when it was happening has been the hardest to reconcile. Seeing hate and disgust in my wife's eyes instead of love and compassion. Watching her ignore and neglect me when I was reaching out to connect and restore our marriage. Seeing her indifference at my pain and confusion. This is where my research into affair fog has been critical in my recovery. I know some feel that affair fog is a cop-out for the WS, but it really does explain the shift in their behavior and decision-making. Seeing a normally loving, logical and empathetic person completely change all of those traits has to be caused by something they aren't in total control of. My frustration. As her affairs got worse, my WW was hurtful when she wasn't being neglectful. I described something that she did that is seared into my memory, that I thought was a consequence of isolation stress, or her suffering mental health, and so I dealt with out of love and compassion. And she was so focused on feeding her affairs at the time that she doesn't remember it. And that by itself is hurtful. That the things she did to hurt me, she did so casually, that it might have been any other Tuesday. To my WW's credit, though, she doesn't disbelieve me when I tell her about these things. She did some proper gaslighting during the affairs and was very good at it, so she's trying hard not to do that now, even by accident. Your WW needs to understand, and, at the moment, might genuinely not comprehend, that his mistreatment of you during the affairs is its own problem and is also serious. He needs to acknowledge his role in that, because it's a serious harm done. Sometimes, people seem to focus so much on the sexual part of affairs, that they don't recognize the damage done by the other behavior associated with them. He might need to have that spelled out to him if he isn't accustomed to thinking about the emotional significance of his actions. But even when my WW listens to me describe something hurtful she did and expresses her genuine remorse, it does feel a bit lacking when she doesn't remember the thing she's apologizing for. I appreciate her effort and the progress we've made, but I say this to warn you that you might have to find a way to make your own peace with these memories in the end. That said, Your WW owes you empathy and patience for each and every memory like that you have, and he should trust you that the things you described did happen. What would be the point in your lying about that, anyway? It sounds like he's denying that this stuff occurred as a defensive reflex, because he wants to avoid the guilt that would come with recognizing it. Second story. My 42M wife, 50F, seems to be obsessing over the man she cheated with. Where to go from here? My 42M wife, 50F, and I have been together 20 years and have a children together. Our marriage was not perfect. Nobody's marriage is, but I always thought we were happy. Yes, having a children is stressful and impacted both of our mental healths. My wife's more so. She's been on antidepressants since our eldest was born. About a year ago, she confessed to having a one-year affair with a close friend of her. He was the stepson of a family friend, who we all knew, 26M. She explained that it had began emotionally at first, but it was mostly one-sided on his part. The irony is that she even flagged some inappropriate behavior on his part and pushed him on boundaries, even alerting me to her unacceptable behavior. I just put it down to a misunderstanding. Anyway, at some point, this family friend of ours developed feelings for my wife and they had a long-term affair. A year long. He wanted her to end our marriage and pursue a life with him, but when push came to shove, she found she could not be away from the kids for half the time and decided to stay. Many will find this shocking, but I never wanted her to leave and always encouraged her to stay. Her AP broke things off with her, but in the first 5 months of us rebuilding our marriage, he continued to reach out to her until she blocked him. This was something she came clean about in marriage counseling. It's been 9 months of trying to rebuild our marriage. It has been really challenging, but I keep thinking time will help heal our wounds. The other day, however, I was on her iPad as the family iPad had died. I was scrolling through TikTok, signed into her account, when her ex-affair partner popped up on her feed. I clicked on his account. He doesn't follow her. There is no engagement between them, but when I scrolled through her watch history, it seems she's been watching his stuff consistently, almost every single night. I'm trying to just think of the positives for now and just thankful that she is no longer actively cheating on me, which, yes, sounds very pathetic, but my priority at the moment is our children. My wife and I do not have a passionate love between us. We get along, we don't argue, but the obsession over her affair partner is of concern. How long can that situation be sustainable for her? My wife seems to be obsessively looking up the person she cheated with online. I can't imagine our children are grown and our daughter comes to me and describes her marriage to me the same way that I'm described here. Do we happy for her? Do we think that this is the best marriage she deserves? Can't imagine our grown son comes to me and describes his marriage like this. He tells me that he cheating wife and continued to pursue and stalk her affair partner even after he blocked her. Do we proud of him? Do we think we raised a good man? I understand that children change everything when it comes to leaving a marriage, but what kind of relationship are we working so hard to sustain? A love partnership or child care agreement? And is that what we want for myself long term? It sounds like she's not doing her share to repair what she broke, and my empathy. Clearly I have a lot to think about and work through on this, so I need suggestions, some solo counseling sessions. I need a place to think without the pressure of our children. So she was obsessed with her AP. I warned her off. She lied to me about her obsession. Eventually AP gave in. They have a year-long affair. She intends to abandon her family for someone half her age. But then he don't want her. When she realizes the man who's used her for fun isn't taking care of her life, she cuts him off. And now she's back to square one and still obsessed with her AP, only she now doesn't have access to. I realize if she ever got it in her mind she wanted him again, he would go running back, right? Our reconciliation is in my head. She's not actively working towards it. She's with you because he doesn't want her and her kids, and not because she doesn't want him. What do I really want? Think about what I want here. If I'm going to stay regardless of what she does, then I have to stop looking, stop wondering, stop thinking about it. I'll make myself miserable. She's not going to stop being obsessed with her AP, especially since he cut her off. Learn how to live ignoring everything she does when she's not home with Maya and the kids. I need sympathy. I sound desperate and pathetic indeed. And not because of the same old cliches out there, but because I want to stay in a loveless marriage, and I've content being in a marriage with no romantic feelings, when she clearly not desires those things. That sounds fucking miserable. I said to myself, there's no romantic feelings between us, but we are friends. Why? Let's not forget the biggest issue here. She went after a fucking family friend's son. Like a creep. That's beyond fucked up. And I stayed despite this. Did she know him when he was a minor too? Yeah, this is shit show. I will get more miserable every year. She will be more miserable too. 'Cause she's forced to be with me when she clearly doesn't want our family. And I, no matter how indifferent I seem, will be more and more hurt by it too. Till one day there's only resentment left between y'all. What she did was fucked up and beyond wrong. And I'm still hung up on the fact that she hitting on young kid when she went after him, and I didn't even take her seriously when she told me. This sounds more like she was forced and manipulated to him instead. Maybe even groomed. And I'm accepting this. No repercussions for her at all. Just family therapy and la-di-das. But I chose to stay in this shit show, and now our kids are gonna grow up thinking that this is what a marriage should be like. Yeah, I don't want they'll have a fucked up view on relationship in the future for sure. Third story. I think the girl, 29F, I'm 32M, dating is possibly cheating on me with her dad's friend, 38M. This is gonna sound crazy, so pretty much I've been dating this girl since late June. And like it's been good for the most part. We have a lot of things in common. And I really like her. The other day her and I was walking. And I was telling her something important and she was like very uninterested, and I glanced over and I seen her texting a number that wasn't saved in her phone. She looked at me with a weird face and turned her phone off immediately. I let it go 'cause I didn't want to jump to conclusions and argue about it, but like the day after she wanted me to come over now. I like to surprise her. I find it funny and am a big jokester, so I came over and her parents knew I was coming. And they didn't tell her that I was there, but I went into her room. And pretty much she jumped up and seen me, and started smiling afterwards, but was on her phone texting, and I went into Veracruz. And I seen her texting the same number, and she was trying to text faster and sent whatever message she was sending mad quick and turned off her phone. She never does this, by the way. And she was acting awkward after. I went out the room for a good sec to calm myself down. And I asked her. I wanted to ask her a serious question. And she knew what I was gonna ask but didn't say anything after that, so I broke the silence. And I asked her who was the person she was texting that's not saved in her phone, and she said I can't say 'cause it's embarrassing, and I'm like WTF. Like that's an odd ass way of answering, so I named like 5 people, and one of them was her dad's friend. Now I met him. Her parents made him drop her at my house once. She said when we first started talking that he's creepy ASL and flirted with her in the past many times. But when I said him, she made a weird face, and was confused on how I know about him, like I never seen the guy before, and tried denying it the first time. And then she was like, okay, yes it was him, but it's nothing. And I told her like I find it weird that you're entertaining a guy that's flirted with you in the past, and let alone your dad's friend, let alone his coworker. And she was swearing up and down it's nothing, and they were talking about Biden and Kamala Harris. And she offered to show me their messages, but I said nah, and I let it go. Now days go by, I catch her still texting dude. And even 2 days ago we was together early morning at her house. And like juice joking and playing with each other, her phone dropped out of her hand. And it falls in front of me, and I look down to get her phone, and guess who I see in her messages texting her early in the morning. And she had a shocked face when I picked up her phone. and gave it to her. It kinda ruined my morning. And I told her I had to go, and she didn't want me to go and kept asking me what's wrong. Then I eventually told her like it's mad weird and you're wrong still texting dude, like no way I'm out here competing with a 38-year-old man. And she was pretty much calling me a bad guy for feeling the way I feel and calling her out for that. I told her I'm gonna have to tell her dad. She went from not caring to caring a whole bunch, saying her parents are very strict, which is kinda true, and they'd take everything from her. And she asked that if I would want that for her. And I'm like, is that all you care about? Which like something was up. Eventually everything cools down and like I was in tears hurting and I eventually leave. Then I got a notification on TikTok. She was reposting me telling my BSF about my new illegal age gap, and I texted her straight away, alright dude. And like she was acting confused on what she did and she removed the repost immediately. I still want to tell her dad though, I can, and we're pretty cool with each other, but I just hope I'm overthinking everything and I'm flat out wrong that she's possibly cheating on me. My girlfriend is possibly cheating on me with her father's co-worker friend. She keeps denying it and it's looking very sketchy, and I really want to let her dad know what's going on.